Okay, so now I want to talk to you a little bit about mounting files, or excuse me, mounting file systems and mounting removable devices, because it's not something you have to do under a Windows system. In a Windows system, it's always automatic. Under a Linux system, it is not always automatic. So I want to kind of talk to you about how we do that. But first, I want to explain to you kind of what a file system is, right? In this example, I'm going to use an Excel sheet to kind of draw this out for you. Let's say that each of these sectors here is going to be a piece of data, right? Each of these sectors is a block. And let's say that we have a file here, and the file has the contents, Waylon is the best. And then over here we have, he is super awesome. Now those are both part of the same file. I'm going to highlight them. And then, you know, there's all kinds of other data all over the place, just interspersed throughout. And then you have a bunch of blocks that are empty and don't have anything as well. Somehow, the operating system needs to know, you know, when you want to look at the file, you know, Waylon rules, where is that file located? So it needs some type of file system. The most basic example is the FAT32 system, and the FAT32 system starts with a file allocation table at the very beginning. We're going to use column A and say that's our FAT table, and it would have an entry there for, you know, Waylon rules, and then it would say, you know, B4, comma, D6 to kind of indicate that is where you will find the contents of this file, right? It would also have other information like, you know, who owns the file, when was it, the date and time it was last modified, all that stuff. We're not that interested in it. You just need to understand the concept of a file system. A file system is just a way that we keep track. Wait, I thought I colored them both. Is just a way that we keep track of which of the blocks are being used and which files do they belong to. That's all it is. So FAT32 is a common Windows file system. NTFS is another common Windows file system. Linux uses EXT, right, extended, and there's extended 1, 2, 3, and 4. Every you know, every operating system has common file systems. Linux can read any file system, so it can read any of them. When you plug in a USB device, what happens is, in a Windows machine, you plug in the USB device, Windows reads that file system table and says, can I figure out what's on here? Okay, I can. And then it automatically mounts it as a drive. So if C is your hard drive, D shows up as your USB drive. Now you'll notice we don't have like a C drive under Linux, right? We all start at root. So where does it go? That's the trick of mounting. So what I've done is I've connected a USB drive to my physical computer with a VM player. What I need to then do is click on the player button, go to removable devices, and you'll see USB flash disk here, and I click on connect, disconnect from host. So that's actually going to take it from the host and connect it to my into my Linux machine. When it did that, Kali Linux did auto mount it. So Kali Linux will automatically mount any USB you connect to it. But it won't, not every version of Linux will, and I want to talk to you about what you would need to do if you're on a version of Linux that doesn't auto mount. So you see it opened it up and showed it to me the same way I would expect to see it at on Windows. But if I open up a terminal and I go back and I go to CD/, go to the root directory and type ls. If I do ls media, you'll notice under media there is now USB disk, right? So I'm going to CD into media, and then I'm going to hit a capital U and then hit tab, Remember, we're going to use autocomplete in Linux. Let it do the work for us. And notice it puts a backslash in front of the space, escaping that character. Otherwise, you need to remember to do that yourself. It's a pain in the butt. And now we see that I am in /media/USB disk, and if I type in ls, we can see what's in here. There's Amazon.pdf. There's the grades for my 271 class, PowerPoint, and an ISO OPH crack. Right? If I do ls-a, you can also see a temporary PDF file. I don't know what, the trash directory, a few other garbage things. But if you were trying to find hidden files, that's what you would do. So under Linux, when I mount it, it shows up as a regular folder, as a regular directory under /media, right? When we're looking at it, when you see it show up here, that's just the Explorer trying to make it look the way Windows looks. A lot of Linux systems don't have that for you. So let me bring that back, and I'm going to cd back into the root directory and type ls, and I'm going to cd into the /dev directory and type ls. I did not forget. I specifically skipped this directory last time we were talking about directories. DEV is the devices, right? And all of the devices that are physically connected to your Linux machine show up here. Remember, in Linux, everything is a file, and almost everything is a text file. So we have, the bus, which is how things are connected in on a motherboard, the CD-ROM, the CPU, and the CPU core, the disk, the DVD. FD stands for floppy drive. And somewhere over here we should find SDB, right? SD stands for SATA drive. You will also often see HD for hard drive, but nowadays it's more common to see a SATA drive. B means it's the second SATA drive, and then, so if you have the first one is A, the second one is B, and then the 1 means the first partition. Each drive can be divvied up into multiple partitions. We also have down here SDA. So SDA is our hard drive. SDB is the USB drive, and SDB1 is that partition on the USB drive. And if I type mount, this will list all of the currently mounted devices, and you will see this bottom one right here, /dev/SDB1, that is the only partition on my USB drive, is mounted on /media/USB disk. The type is VFAT, which is any file allocation table, 32, 64. Linux mounts them all as VFAT. These are all the options, read, write. We don't need to worry about those options too much. Sometimes you'll have read, write, and read only become important, but other than that, we don't care about options. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to umount /dev/SDB1. And now when I type mount, you see that's no longer listed as a mounted device. And if I go back here, you no longer see the USB disk there. And if I go here, oh, it is still showing it up. When I clicked on it, it mounted it again. So that's kind of a quirk of Explorer. I didn't realize it would do that. So I'm going to unmount it again. So the Linux File Explorer is becoming more Windows intuitive, so that when you click on it, it automatically mounts it. But don't count on that. Not all versions of Linux are like that. If I want to mount it myself, I need to create an empty folder before I do that. So let me do a mkdir/media, and actually I'm going to call this USB num2 just to make it different. So then I issue mount / device SDB1 to media USB num2. Now if I cd into /media USB num2 and type ls, I see all the same files there. So even though it's mounted under a different folder, it's still there. Everything is exactly the same. So the key thing I want you to understand, in any operating system, whenever you connect a drive, be it a CD or a DVD or a USB drive or an external hard drive, anything, it has to be mounted. In Windows, it will always do it for you automatically. In Linux, it will not always do it for you automatically, although Kali Linux will. When it doesn't do it for you automatically, you must create a blank directory for it to be mounted to, and then you have to issue this mount command the way I did. That's the basics of mounting. It does come up reasonably often in Linux, often enough that I thought it was important to share this with you. All right? Great. If you have any questions, let me know.